Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Health Focus, your weekly guide to living your best, healthiest life. I'm your host, Lindiwe Mabaso, and today we're discussing something that affects all of us, the food we eat, specifically processed foods and their impact on our health. Before we dive in, I'd like to recommend an excellent resource for overall health and wellness. Live Well, A Guide to Healthy Living by Larry Allen, available now at Waterstones bookstores nationwide and online. This comprehensive guide offers valuable insights into maintaining optimal health through nutrition, exercise, and mindful living practices. Now let's turn our attention to understanding the hidden dangers of processed foods and why returning to our traditional African dietary roots might be the best medicine. Understanding processed foods. First, let's clarify what we mean by processed foods. These are foods that have been altered from their natural state through various methods like canning, freezing, or adding preservatives, flavors, or other chemical ingredients. Think canned soups, frozen dinners, breakfast cereals, packaged snacks, and fast food. While not all processing is harmful, after all, fermenting vegetables or grinding grain into flour are forms of processing. Today we're focusing on ultra-processed foods, which have become alarmingly common in the Western diet and are increasingly finding their way into African households. Let's hear from one of our listeners. Amara: Hi Lindiwe, I've noticed more and more Western-style processed foods in our local supermarkets. Are they really as bad as people say? Amara, thank you for that question. And unfortunately, yes, they are often worse than people realize. According to a shocking study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, eating just 10% of your daily calories from processed foods is linked to significantly higher risks of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and even early death. What's particularly concerning is that in Western countries like the United States, ultra-processed foods now make up over 60% of the average person's diet. We're seeing similar trends creeping into urban areas across Africa as more people adopt Western dietary habits. But here's a new fact that many people don't know. A 2023 large-scale study tracking over 200,000 participants across 30 countries found that for every 10% increase in ultra-processed food consumption, all-cause mortality increased by 15%. That's a staggering statistic that should give us all pause before reaching for that packaged snack. The engineering of addiction. One of the most troubling aspects of processed foods is how they're deliberately engineered to override our body's natural satiety signals. Essentially, they're designed to be addictive. David: Lindiwe, I've noticed I can't seem to stop eating certain snacks once I start. Is there a reason for this, or am I just lacking willpower? David, I want to assure you this isn't simply about willpower. Food scientists at major corporations specifically design these products to hit what they call the bliss point, the perfect combination of sugar, salt, fat, and artificial flavors that makes these foods hyper-palatable and stimulates the same reward centers in your brain as addictive substances. A fascinating new study published in the journal Nature Neuroscience last year used brain imaging to show that ultra-processed foods activate the same neural pathways as drugs like cocaine and heroin, though to a lesser degree. This helps explain why so many people struggle with cravings and find it difficult to reduce their consumption of these foods. These foods are also engineered to have specific textures and mouthfeel that encourage us to eat quickly before our bodies can register that we're full. For example, many snack foods are designed to dissolve quickly in your mouth, tricking your brain into thinking you haven't eaten much, even when you've consumed hundreds of calories. Nutritional void and harmful additives. Beyond their addictive nature, processed foods are nutritionally deficient compared to whole foods. They lack beneficial nutrients like vitamins, minerals, fiber, and antioxidants that are naturally present in whole, unprocessed foods. Even more concerning are the numerous additives found in these foods. Chemical preservatives. Substances like sodium nitrite in processed meats have been classified as probable carcinogens by the World Health Organization. Artificial colors, many of which have been linked to behavioral issues in children and have been banned in several countries. Emulsifiers and thickeners. Recent research shows these can disrupt the gut microbiome, potentially leading to inflammatory bowel diseases and metabolic disorders. High fructose corn syrup, which metabolizes differently than regular sugar and has been linked to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Let's hear from another listener with a question about this. Nyla. Lindiwe, I've heard that processed foods can affect gut health. Is this true? And how exactly does it happen? Nyla, that's an excellent question that touches on some of the newest research in this field. The relationship between processed foods and gut health is particularly concerning. Our gut contains trillions of bacteria that play crucial roles in our health, from digestion to immune function and even mental health. New research published in the journal Cell Host and Microbe last year found that emulsifiers common in processed foods directly damage the protective mucus layer in our intestines, allowing harmful bacteria to come into close contact with the intestinal wall. This triggers inflammation and has been linked to conditions ranging from irritable bowel syndrome to autoimmune diseases. What's particularly alarming is that these changes to gut bacteria can happen within just 24 hours of switching to a processed food diet, according to a 2023 study from Stanford University. The African dietary heritage. Now let's talk about something I'm particularly passionate about, our rich African dietary heritage. Across this vast continent, traditional diets vary widely, but share common threads. They're based on whole, minimally processed foods grown locally and in season. Kofi, hi Lindiwe, my grandmother always says we should eat food the way our ancestors did. Is there scientific evidence supporting traditional African diets over Western ones? Kofi, your grandmother is absolutely right. And yes, there is growing scientific evidence supporting this wisdom. Traditional African diets typically feature whole grains like millet, sorghum, and teff, a variety of fruits and vegetables, modest amounts of animal protein, and healthy fats from sources like fish and nuts. These diets are naturally rich in fiber, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds. A groundbreaking study published in the Lancet Global Health in 2023 compared health outcomes among communities in Ghana that maintained traditional diets versus those who had adopted more Western eating patterns. The results were striking. Those eating traditional diets had significantly lower rates of hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and obesity. Another fascinating aspect of traditional African cuisines is fermentation. Many of our traditional foods undergo natural fermentation processes. Think of injera in Ethiopia, ogi in Nigeria, or amasi in South Africa. These fermented foods contain probiotics that support gut health and enhance nutrient absorption. The wisdom embedded in our traditional food systems isn't just cultural, it's scientifically sound. Our ancestors developed these dietary patterns over thousands of years, in harmony with local environments and seasonal availability. Why Africans should resist processed foods. Given what we know about both the dangers of processed foods and the benefits of traditional diets, I believe Africans should think very carefully before adopting Western dietary habits. Here are some compelling reasons why. First, we have access to some of the freshest, most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Many Africans still have connections to local farming and food production. The organic, fresh produce available in our markets often surpasses what's available in Western countries, where food may travel thousands of miles before reaching consumers. Second, our bodies may be especially vulnerable to the negative effects of processed foods. Research from the journal Diabetes Care shows that people of African descent may be more susceptible to metabolic disruptions from high sugar, high refined carbohydrate diets. This means processed foods could potentially cause even more harm to our health than they do to populations that have been exposed to them for generations. Third, by maintaining our traditional dietary patterns, we're preserving crucial cultural knowledge and food sovereignty. When we switch to processed foods, we're not just changing what we eat, we're changing who controls our food system. Zola, Lindiwe, I live in the city and work long hours. How can I realistically maintain a traditional diet when processed foods are so convenient? Zola, that's a practical challenge many urban Africans face. I believe the answer isn't necessarily to reject all modern conveniences, but to be selective and intentional about how we incorporate them. Consider batch cooking traditional dishes on weekends and freezing portions for busy weekdays. Explore community-supported agriculture programs that deliver fresh, local produce to urban areas. Even simple swaps can make a difference, choosing whole fruits instead of fruit juices or traditional fermented porridges instead of boxed breakfast cereals. Many enterprising Africans are creating businesses that make traditional foods more accessible to busy urban dwellers. Supporting these initiatives not only benefits your health, but also strengthens local food systems. Practical steps to reduce processed foods. For everyone listening, here are some practical steps to reduce processed foods in your diet. Start with small changes. Replace one processed food item with a whole food alternative each week. Read labels carefully. If something contains ingredients you can't pronounce or wouldn't find in a home kitchen, reconsider purchasing it. Cook at home more often. Even simple home-cooked meals are typically healthier than their processed counterparts. Rediscover traditional recipes. Connect with elders in your community who can share traditional cooking methods and recipes. Shop the perimeter of the grocery store. This is where fresh whole foods are typically located. Thomas, Lindiwe, what's your view on processed foods that claim to be healthy, like protein bars or fortified cereals? Thomas, I'm glad you asked about this because it highlights how clever marketing can sometimes confuse consumers. While some processed foods are certainly better than others, even those marketed as healthy typically contain additives and lack the complex array of nutrients found in whole foods. For example, a protein bar might provide protein, but it often comes with added sugars, artificial sweeteners, and various texturizers. Similarly, fortified cereals add back a few synthetic vitamins after removing many of the natural nutrients during processing. My advice? Rather than relying on fortified processed foods, seek nutrition from whole food sources whenever possible. An egg provides better protein than a protein bar. Fresh fruits offer more benefits than fruit-flavored products. Traditional grains like millet and sorghum provide more nutrition than fortified cereals. Closing, as we wrap up today's discussion on processed foods, I want to leave you with an empowering thought. Every meal is an opportunity to nourish your body and honor your heritage. Our traditional African food systems evolved over thousands of years to provide optimal nutrition using local resources. There's profound wisdom in these traditions that modern food science is only beginning to understand. When we choose whole, minimally processed foods over ultra-processed alternatives, we're not just making a healthier choice for ourselves. We're preserving cultural knowledge, supporting local food systems, and rejecting the notion that Western dietary patterns represent progress. Before we go, I'd like to remind you once again about Live Well, A Guide to Healthy Living by Larry Allen, available at Waterstones bookstores. While we focus today on processed foods, this book offers excellent guidance on maintaining overall health through multiple approaches. Thank you for joining me today on Health Focus. I'm Lindiwe Mabaso, reminding you that the food choices we make today shape the health we'll enjoy tomorrow. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back next week with more health insights to help you live your best life. Health Focus is produced by happyguthealthybrain.blogspot.com. Our executive producer is Larry Allen, with research support from Dr. Claude. Subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review if you found this helpful. For show notes and more resources on today's topic, visit happyguthealthybrain.blogspot.com.